December is something I'm putting together, is about to launch. You go on the East Lyme Town website. You'll see a button there that says East Lyme Volunteer Corps. You press it, and you put your info in, and there's password requirements and verification requirements, and then you can check some boxes on things you might be interested in helping other people with, maybe snow shoveling or cutting someone's lawn, or litter patrol or beach patrol, or different things in town, including organizations like the Children's Museum or Care and Share, or some of the other great organizations like the Lobster Fest we have here on July 4th weekend. Always need volunteers for things like that. We're also busy, of course, with our budget. We're busy developing the Main Street Park, ordering materials, putting together bid packages for that. Cheney Beach bathrooms, the Cheney Park bathrooms, and this is just a busy time of year when we get into this month and next, putting the budgets together with this board and with the Board of Finance as we prepare to send it to the public for their review and approval. So that's all I have this evening. Next is public comments. Mrs. Cheeseman, you've been here patiently so long, and being our state rep, I know you're the busiest person on the planet, but we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Holly Cheeseman, 16 Mitchell Drive, Niantic, State Representative for East Lyme and Salem. Again, I want to commend the Board of Education on their budget, and would like to let them and anyone else know on Monday, the Education Committee is having a public hearing at 11 a.m., and among the bills they're going to consider is an act concerning authorization of state grant commitments for school building projects, of which our three elementary schools, are included. Superintendents are invited between 5:30 and 6:30 to testify, and of course it is always possible to submit testimony online. If you have any questions and would like to submit testimony on that, I would be happy to supply the links. Of interest as well, considering the discussion we've had about the governor and the cuts to the budget, there is raised House Bill 5171, an act prohibiting the executive branch from making rescissions or other reductions to the education cost-sharing grant during the fiscal year.
Hear, hear.
I suspect that's going to get a lot of support. Whether that makes it through the process and indeed would survive a gubernatorial veto, I don't know. But I know East Lyme and Salem are not alone in having been badly affected by governor's decisions that went far beyond anything the legislature had intended. As the First Selectman indicated, we are back in session. We never really ended the last session. We had our last meeting of the special session on January 31st and then convened the short session on February 7th. Committees are meeting as it is the short session. The deadline to raise bills is a short one. Environment has had 400 bills submitted. Finance met today. We look at the revenue side. There were 8 bills plus an additional 46 concepts that we're looking at. A lot of this is not going to make it past the gate, but we are working hard. It's a challenging time, both on the state and on the national level, but rest assured, Senator Famika and I will be doing everything in our power to protect this town and our wonderful quality of life and the responsible way our town government is operated. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeseman.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to our community and to our state and all the people in it. Much appreciated. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Yeah, that's quick. Sure.
I know they're not here, but I just want to recognize and thank Dick Morris. He's done a wonderful job for this town, and I know he's moving on to bigger and better things. And I want to commend the Board of Selectmen with Chris Taylor as well as Chief Finkelstein, two fabulous individuals. Chris has always been so responsive with our schools and with me, and same thing with Chief Finkelstein, and we feel so much more of a presence with the police department in the schools. So thank you, kudos to the work and moving forward with that. So thank you.
We got a good thing going on
really
right now,
do.
just
Absolutely.
all over, and it's all kind of working together. It's just kind of amazing.
Yes, sir.
Dave Godbout, 15 Cardinal Road. Good evening. Just comments on reference to what was said during the meeting. First thing was the executive session, special meeting being approval of minutes. I have noticed in executive sessions that the board will put down just personnel, going to an executive session to discuss personnel issues. Of course, under our open meetings laws, you can certainly seek to go into executive session in reference to talking about issues related to town employees. However, the law also allows that town employee to say, no, I don't want it to be done in executive session, I want it to be done out in public. And then you have to have that expected executive session in public. However, if you have the line item of an executive session just saying, going to meet to discuss personnel issue, it doesn't give notice to that actual person who's the subject matter of the expected executive session to come in here before the board and say, no, I want that to have that done in public. So you should really, when you're checking executive sessions for personnel matters, it should actually give a little bit more information to the public so that we know what exactly you're going into executive session for. I think I've talked to you about this ad infinitum, but it might come back and bite the people of this town in the butt when you go into an executive session, you decide something in an executive session, you come out here, you vote on it, and we find out that you indeed violated the act, FOIA Act, and the FOIA Commission comes back and says, well, the vote is void. And maybe a settlement agreement is voided because of it. So keep that in mind. In reference to the Board of Education, I was interested to hear that they changed from oil to gas conversion. I was very interested to hear that. I would have hoped to have heard a little bit more about the return on the investment in doing that, and whether the board also considered maybe a change from oil to coal. Coal is actually a cleaner burning fuel than oil, and is cheaper than gas. And also the ash that is produced is sellable. It's non-hazardous waste. It can be used as fill. Second issue is, of course, the issue of safety appeared to be brought up. And of course, if you go to visit the superintendent's office, what does a visitor first encounter? It's a steel door that you can't open unless you have a pass or somebody buzzes you in. I think, and I have talked to the town in reference to this before on this matter, you go to the high school, there's no such protections for the students of people walking in, gaining access to the interior of that building. So I think that the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen should give consideration to improving, limiting the access to schools, to outside persons. And I think that it's also known to the Board of Education, or at least schools, that I did go and I looked at some camera footage from the security cameras that are on the high school. I did this for the election day time period because no students were in session on election day, so there's no issue in reference to privacy of students. But there were still people moving in and out of the building routinely, and I have noticed that the camera system really doesn't work. It's broke. It's supposed to be motion activated system where a person walks in front of it and the recording is supposed to start. I have found that system is failing. It doesn't work very well. So you may want to look into that if you want to consider the camera system as being part of the security system of the school. And you may want to look at the other schools' cameras as well for that particular issue as well. You also heard about regionalization of school services. I myself, I believe more in local control versus regionalization. I grew up in the Midwest where we have separate school districts itself, not part of the town. They live and breathe. They're their own legal entity where control is even more so than here in the state of Connecticut. However, regionalization would even weaken that control out even further. So as far as regionalization, I would not support that incentive or movement towards, even if it does include costs, small cost savings. Let's see if I have any other questions. I think that in regards to looking at improving the security, the access to buildings, through key cards or number system or some type of key activated entry into school, on the page that is talking about the $152,000 savings, maybe consider using that $152,000 savings into improving, the security access into the schools. Mr. Nickerson doesn't appear to have a favorable viewpoint on that, but yet, just from your body language, it says that you're not happy with that kind of proposal. But of course, we see what has happened recently in Florida and at Sandy Hook several years back. I actually went over to Sandy Hook High School because they had a meeting there for the legislature. One of the task forces had a meeting there. And when I visited that location, I was met with similar to our high school, where it was all glass doors. And I suggested to them that they replace the doors with something more substantial than just the material of glass. And they really weren't interested in doing that. And as far as those issues are concerned, I really put the focus or the blame on the schools and the local government for allowing such easy access to schools. More so, than how can you really blame a mentally ill individual? I mean, our justice system doesn't do that, so I cannot in good conscience really do that. People seem to be focusing on the device that was used in the shootings as if they would be happier if a different device was used. So I don't think that's an answer. I think the answer is actually just to improve the access to the schools, to make it unavailable for somebody to enter the school who isn't supposed to be there. I think that would solve most of the issues. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Thank you.
Any other? You can't respond, believe it or not. Yeah,
We
I'll
can talk
clarify
afterwards,
for you.
Superintendent.
Mr. Garbett, you're done. You're actually out of time, so
Well, there
I'll
is
let
no
you
time
speak.
limit.
There is a time limit,
There
sir.
is
Could you
not.
please sit?
There is not. Read your rules.
Yeah, I'll show it to you after the meeting, okay? Okay. We have a lot of security measures in place, and a lot of what Mr. Garbett said is incorrect. And I know you're eager to get up there and say that, but I'll keep to our agenda because, we wouldn't want to be called coming off of our agenda. But there's a lot of security measures in place that people don't know, and some of the things that Mr. Garbett referenced are incorrect. So let's leave it there. Any other comments about feedback? I think Mr. Bialawans had mentioned something, and I did want to give him the courtesy, since he did so kind as to apologize. He asked about why the temporary tower was not put on Mostery Road, and it's actually not high, I believe, and I'm trying to recall from a year and a half ago. We had public meetings in the room and all that. I don't think it was high enough, because we're not putting in a permanent antenna with the correct height. This is a temporary antenna that comes on the back of a truck. But the solar farm is actually higher in elevation, I believe, and that's why it was put over there. Plus, it has electricity on the spot that we could tie into, and Mostery Road doesn't have a power source that would need to energize the tower and the equipment. I believe that's the situation there, and that was to answer that question. He's looking for some paperwork. He can reach my office anytime, and actually maybe even the clerk's office.
Clerk's
as far as
office would have
the,
that, yeah.
the minutes of the meeting from a couple of years ago, or the contract. I think it was the simple contract we have with the solar farm people.
Westway LLC.
You're right, with the tower people, not the solar farm. We don't have that. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.